Hello and welcome to a review of Rogue Legacy for PC, Mac, Linux, PS3, PS4, and PS Vita. This video is coming to you courtesy of Porkchop. He sent me this, so thank you, it is greatly appreciated. This is a platformer and roguelike-like by Cellar Door Games. It was first released for PC in June of 2013 and later saw release across various other systems. And it's fairly interesting because it's pretty unusual as far as both platformers and roguelike-likes go. And it certainly got a very good reception when it came out. People generally liked it quite a bit, and it was pretty highly reviewed among critics. But there's a reason I'm doing this as not quite a review, rather than a full-on review. And the simple reason is, this is a love it or hate it kind of game. And I'll get more into that as I go through the rest of this video, but suffice to say, I can't really give this some sort of definitive good, bad, mediocre, average, etc. rating. So the question becomes, what does this game do that sets it as such a unique title and makes it such a love it or hate it kind of deal? Well, before we really get into the meat of this thing, let's first talk about the presentation, which is fairly typical indie fare at this point, and by that I mean it's pixel art. Now, this is certainly not the extremely retro kind of pixel art that you tend to see, where they're very clearly trying to go for, say, an 8-bit or 16-bit kind of thing. This one, not so much. It is more detailed than most other pixel art games, and they've put quite a bit of effort into actually making the art stand out, and it's very well appreciated. That said, some things don't look all that great. For example, I think that the sword that you get as your various characters looks pretty awful, but it's just things here and there that just kind of put me off. It's not the whole thing. In fact, it looks alright for the most part. It's certainly bright and colorful, and that's certainly well appreciated in this era. And as far as the sound design goes, it's got a pretty decent soundtrack. It's nothing mind-bogglingly amazing, but it works pretty well for the game. And it's sound effects, because there's basically no voice acting to speak of in this thing. The sound effects certainly do their job and work rather well. Again, they're not particularly amazing, but they work pretty well for the most part. But obviously what really matter here are the story and the gameplay, except there's basically no story to speak of in this game, so it doesn't really factor in. The idea is that you're trying to clean out this evil castle kind of thing, which is a randomly generated dungeon that you have to defeat 4 boss monsters in the various environments, and then go on to defeat the final boss. That's it. That's your entire plot right there. It does try to do some things with, for example, the journal entries that you'll find scattered around the castle, but they don't really do a huge amount to actually add any depth to the story. It's basically just dungeon crawling at its finest, so to speak. So it really does fall to the gameplay. Well, as far as gameplay goes, it's nothing particularly mind-boggling in terms of its core mechanics. It's a platformer. You run around, you jump on platforms, you whack monsters in the face until they just crumple into nothingness. You get gold, and you continue going through the castle, exploring things, that sort of thing. But it's done in this sort of Metroidvania style where you do get access to various equipment and special abilities that you'll unlock as you continue through the game. And this is done by collecting as much gold as you possibly can, and then spending it after your character dies in order to improve the home castle, so to speak, where you'll get access to all sorts of passive abilities and unlock new character classes and that sort of thing. It's an interesting idea, and they continue this idea with equipment and special abilities, where you can buy them from the blacksmith and the enchantress, and then there's also the architect, which allows you to basically lock in the dungeon from the last time you played. So if you just want to go through the exact same layout, if you thought it was a good layout, then you can actually pay the architect, and he will keep the same layout for you, so you can go through and basically go through the exact same thing that you've memorized, so to speak. But no matter what you purchase, you have to give all your remaining gold to Karen to be able to actually enter the castle. Karen, of course, the ferryman to the land of the dead. And then you go into the castle and you just run around until you die, and then you just start over again and again and again. Now, they try to make this interesting by making each character you play a choice of basically 3 different descendants. What you're doing is you start out and you get your ass handed to you inevitably, and then you pick one of the descendants of that character to go through the dungeon again. And this repeats until you decide that you've had enough with the game. So each character that you can choose from has different traits. They're a different class, they have different special abilities, they might have some seriously weird conditions. Like there's one character type where if they have a certain condition, you actually see things upside down, which is really hard to play, I might add. Some of them are fairly simple, like color blindness. It basically plays in black and white. If they're nostalgic, then it takes on a sepia hue. It's kind of these interesting quirks. Some of them are giants, some of them are dwarfs, some of them have nearsightedness, which I didn't really see much of a problem with, and some can not see in 3D, and so when enemies turn around, they're basically flat, and it's pretty amusing. But there's all sorts of cool quirks that each of these characters has, and it does help to shake things up a bit, because you do have that random generation element of it. But the problem is, the game is extreme repetition, as basically all roguelikes are. And since it's a roguelike-like, where even though you have these platforming mechanics that are kind of like a Metroidvania, it doesn't have the same kind of appeal that a Metroidvania would. And what I mean by that is, a Metroidvania is really about exploration. You go through the castle, you find all of the secrets, you unlock the alternate endings, things like that. That's interesting. That's what makes games like the Castlevania games post Symphony of the Night interesting. Well, including Symphony of the Night, of course. But when you transplant mechanics like that into a roguelike where the layout of the castle is constantly changing, it loses steam very quickly. And so it basically just becomes an instant grind and not much else. And so what I found was, while it does have some charm to it, and it's certainly not a bad game, I got bored with it incredibly quickly. Now, I soldiered through a fair amount of it just so I would get a very good idea of what different classes might play as, what kind of upgrade path you get. By no means did I get anywhere near even the first boss, but I don't feel like playing it anymore. It's not my kind of game. It's I love it or hate it kind of thing. Now, I'm kind of weird in this because I'm not in the love it or hate it category. I'm in the complete apathy category. It's just there, and I just got really tired of playing it. So, again, it's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, if you like roguelikes, if you like roguelike-likes, and you like platformers, you'll probably be able to get something out of it. But if that isn't your kind of thing, you're not going to get anything out of this. So, it's a cool idea. It has some interesting concepts that work out okay in the game, but unfortunately, it just devolves into a grind. And you know me, I do not like grinding in video games at all. It just gets incredibly tedious. So for those of you who are interested in checking this out, I will have a link in the video description box to where you can pick it up. Thanks for watching.